I am Colleen Young, host of Live with Collie, and you are watching episode 48. Today I'm in Session Studio on Amherst Street in Buffalo, and I sat down with recording artist Giuseppe to talk about his upcoming album titled Time Capsule. So Giuseppe, it's good to be here with you today.
And it's great being here with you today as well, Colleen.
So you have some pretty big news for the people of Buffalo. You are coming out with an album.
Finally, yes.
I hear that you've been working on these songs for about 20 years.
Yeah, it's pathetic, I know. It's been a trial and error by trying to get something done as simple as just making a record. You know, I had interest in wanting to get into the songwriting field because I already could play piano then. I started playing piano when I was 9.
Wow.
But I was 9, you know, I wasn't composing then, but it was just because of my father, you know. He was the guy, he was just that one guy that believed in me. He knew that I had this aptitude because I loved music a lot then, you know. It was so funny, one day he walked in with this little organ, you know, that you can just carry around, and it probably got it from a garage sale or something.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Giuseppe, this is for you. This is for you. Yeah, play." I'm like, okay. So I did what he wanted me to do. I just played. I used my ears. I couldn't read music to save my life, so I was. You could say I was self-taught. You know.
So you started playing piano at a young age.
9 years old. Yeah.
Do you know other instruments?
Drums, which could have been my first instrument then, and this goes back to the early '80s. This is like maybe when I was 4 years old, and I can remember we went to a garage sale. This was in Auburn at the time. And right next to my aunt's was like a real close neighbor. They were selling a drum set. My father wanted me, well, I thought he wanted me to play in front of people. And not unbeknownst to me, not even knowing, he wanted to buy the drums for me. So that could have been my first instrument before the piano. So I just I couldn't believe it. I let my dad down.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dad. I'm sorry.
And so you didn't want to play in front of people back then. Do you play in front of people now?
Percussion-wise, yes. I have been playing since in a high school band. That was my first exposure in playing in front of kids. And I remember very well that I actually played the drums in front of people. I had butterflies in my stomach. But it was, but at 16, that was like, you know, that was a good feeling. That was a good nervous type of feeling. It wasn't like adult problems like, you know, anxiety, nausea, heart palpitations, that kind of anxiety. That was like, you know, when I was younger, it was just like, I'm nervous, but I'm excited at the same time. I get to play in front of people. So yeah, around 14, 15 years old, I started playing in a high school band for 4 years. Very lucky to have grade 2 music teachers that really shaped me, the drummer that I am. Yeah, so that's pretty much how I started playing the real drum set in high school. But before then, when I was younger, I was playing pots and pans. But that's just pots and pans. I wasn't playing a real instrument. But that's when I was also a kid. I decided to, you know, play it along with my father's records, which that totally changed my life, was those records. And that was it. And my father knew. He saw me doing this every time. You know, I was just playing along, banging away along with the music, and my father was just impressed. He's like, my God, my son, he just has this instinct, this fatherly instinct feeling that he knew that I had this musical talent in me that needed to come out. That's why he bought the organ, because he just had that instinct. He was like, I know you don't play, but I have this feeling that you can't, Giuseppe. So that's how it all started, actually, at a young age.
Well, now that your album is going to come out, would you perform live in front of people in Buffalo, like do little gigs or anything? No? Too shy? What if people love it and they want to see you in the coffee shops or something?
I'm tinkering the idea. I have some people that might want to jump in to embarrass themselves with my crazy music, but I'm not saying yes or no. It's just I'm thinking about it. Singing and playing piano in front of people, I do get this. I have this disorderly feeling of panic attacks, which is a problem. It has to be very slow. I have to work my way up to a point where I can feel comfortable playing in bigger venues. I have to start small, very small people, and then just, you know, to a point where I can get used to it and not feel so insecure.
So your dad started you playing the instruments at a young age.
Yes.
What inspired you then to want your own songs and start writing your own songs 20 years ago?
Again, the records. A lot of people assume it was classic rock bands that I heavily listened to, like the Beatles, Beach Boys. Yes, that's true. But it's those records that my father brought all that stuff from Italy to hear. Pop music from that era at the time, the 60s. That which got me influenced to wanting to write that kind of style of music. Not so much wanting to sound like that era. I mean, I still want to sound like me, but it does have a profound influence on me. And then when I was 13 or 14 years old, I started getting into listening to the Beatles, which, again, it does have its influences in my writing as well.
I can tell, I hear it.
Beach Boys, the Beach Boys, Brian Wilson, and then later, when I was in my early 20s, I started listening to Led Zeppelin. Drumming-wise, I'm not a guitarist, because Zeppelin is more guitar-orientated type of group, you know what I mean? But if any Zeppelin-y influence in me, it's the drums. It's John Bonham. It completely turned me into another drummer. After I listened to Zeppelin 4, the album, that completely transformed me into becoming actually a better drummer.
So what influences in your life? I know that you have a wife that you love very much.
Yes, she's so cute.
I love hearing you talk about her. Has she inspired any of your songs?
Yes. Oh, yes. Half of the songs are inspired by her.
How long have you two been married?
Proudly so, 10 years. But I've been with her for 17.
Wow. She's definitely been along for this ride.
Yes,
with your songs.
yes.
It's amazing.
The songs I write, it's very, very honest music. It's very much the times that I lived through in my life. It's not something I just pull out. I'm considered prolific. I could just like churning songs every day. But at the same time, sometimes I like things that happen in the moment, things that happen in my life. Actually, I write better songs that way.
Wow.
When things happen, even before Julie, even before my wife, actually. But yeah, she does inspire me a lot to write songs for her. Yeah. How the hell else could I not? How the hell else could I not, Colleen?
That's amazing.
She's such a cutie.
Is she musical as well?
Yes, and Julie introduced me to a lot of music I've never heard before. Not just music, but film as well. She introduced me to a lot of Canadian music, Canadian rock music from the 90s.
Is she Canadian?
No, she just loves that era. She loves a lot of bands that I get that I never heard of. And she, when we started dating, she introduced me to a lot of these cool bands. That opened my eyes and my mind to look, to listen to other types of music from other countries. Canadian music as well. Yeah, she introduced me to a lot of bands from Scotland. Belle and Sebastian was one band that really just like, well, how come I've never heard of these guys? Because they were actually huge.
Wow.
Belle and Sebastian was like, that's me. That's me. When I first heard of the first couple of the records, it was just like amazing. It's just amazing. She has that good taste of music that she instilled in me. So I was very lucky. I have someone that is very musically inclined. She doesn't play an instrument, but she knows a good music when she hears one.
Well, it sounds like your dad and your wife are both very big influences in your life and your music.
Yeah.
How excited are they that you're coming out with your album finally?
My dad was surprised, actually. He was quite surprised. He was very proud because he knew he had a hand in it, in getting me involved in something into music. Because my dad, he's a vocalist, not professionally, but he likes opera. That's just the kind of music I actually was brought listening to as well. Not just my dad's taste is eclectic. He's got it's rock and roll, pop music, Italian folk music as well. All these old scratchy 45 that brought from Italy, but mostly he likes to listen to classical and romance music from that era. Yeah, they're both very, very into the cultural, artsy aspect of it.
So you wrote the songs for the past 2 decades, and now you're putting them into an album, and you've been in the recording studio for a year.
Well, it's not intentional, mind you. It's not intentional to wait 20 years. I don't like waiting, but around at the time, people were so-called collaborators, where it's very hard to find somebody to help you out. And plus the expense, and keep in mind back 20 years ago, the studios then were very, very expensive. But I was a kid, I did other things. I was an avid video gamer. I would spend most of my time doing that. I regretted it. It's not that I never wrote any songs then, neither, but I wish I could have just done more then.
Yeah.
That was my only regret, you know. Even if I attempted to record those songs then, it probably wouldn't be as good as it is now. I mean, now there's a maturity level in me that I know what to do when I'm going into a studio, and, you know, I don't think it would have been as good. So I kind of have to look at it that way as well.
So how does it feel that now your projects, your babies for all this time
All
are
my
now-
babies, they're all grown up and I have to let them go.
But it's time.
It's
You're
time
ready?
to let them go. Yeah, I'm ready.
Good.
Yeah. I mean, the songs, they still hold up, you know. I mean, even if it was written years ago, it still hold up. I'm just not the songwriter that wants to fit in with the times. I hate that. I don't like trends. I don't like fads. I hate that because they don't last. It's a bubblegum effect. I don't, well, why? I mean, why can't you want to write something that lasts forever? You know, that's kind of like, that's the kind of songwriter I really am. And to have kind of like a relationship between me and the instrument, and not have any other outside influences. You know, I mean, when I write, I want to just have the melody, me, and the instrument. That's it. You know, and to be as original as I can be.
When I hear your songs, I think that they're happy. I think that they sound like you, and they do remind me of the Beatles, which I like. What do you hear when you hear your songs?
I hear a splash of Italian pop, 60s style music that obviously when I was listening to when I was a kid, so that just ingrained in me. A splash of Beatles, a little splash of me, a little splash of a lot of other things, you know, Carole King, Brian Wilson, Elton John. So those, I can go on and on, you know, the amount of influences. I listen to a lot of music. I don't like to limit myself to just the Beatles. They were a phenomenon, yes, it was a phenomenal group, but I mean, there's other bands. I don't like to just listen to one type of group of band.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the single that you are releasing?
My Red Shoe. My Red Shoe is a single. It's in your face kind of single. I don't know, it's just an instinct.
I like it. I listened to it this morning while I was getting ready, and I was like, I really like it.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you did. Funny thing is, it was never any intention to write, because I was going to school at the time for sound engineering. There was a teacher named Michael Rourke, one of the best sound engineers around, and one of the nicest human beings you ever meet as well. Literally the nicest. He actually suggested to everyone, to all the students, to buy themselves a little 4-track machine. A little Porta Studio 4-track, and I sat there and I was like, they sell those things? Oh my god, great. So I went into the store, I bought myself a 4-track machine, went home, and I called my lyricist, David Green. And I called Dave up, and I was like, hey Dave, because he's into electronics, and he's also a computer whiz, so he's into that sort of thing. So I called him up and I was like, hey Dave, I got a 4-track machine. And he's like, okay, I'll be right over. And he hung up, and then within 5 minutes he came to my house. We went to the basement. And we didn't really know, we were just kids, we didn't know what to do. We started like, you know, messing around with it. We only had 2 microphones at the time. Well, I said to myself, it's like, well Dave, why don't we do this? Why don't I just go to the drum set? I'll just play a beat, and you sing it, you know, and then because there's only 2 inputs. So recording the drums on first input, the second for him to sing it. So I was playing this rock beat, and then it took Dave like maybe 5 minutes, within 5-10 minutes to figure out what he's going to sing about. There's no piano, there's no pen and paper, that's just how we wrote. Just like started like thinking of something to sing about, and he was like bobbing his head like this. And all of a sudden, Harry came out. Well, I do a little thing about me and you. What I gotta do. But the thing is, it's like the intro of the song was the whole song. It was monotonous. It wasn't like at the time there was no chorus, there was no bridge, there was none of that. It was just straight like da da dee 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 dee. We were just screwing around at the time because we wanted to learn this technology that we have, and that was it. We had fun, we called it a day, and then probably the next day I was listening to it because I was amused by it. It was so funny. And I thought to myself, this could be a potential song. This could be a song that I can kind of work with, you know. That's what I said to myself. 2 weeks later, I was hanging out with Dave, and I was like, well, Dave, would you care for me to maybe make this into a song? And he was like, no, don't do it. No, I don't want. It's like, oh, come on, Dave. No, don't do that. It's stupid. Don't do it. You know, within 7 years later, with my usual self, I didn't listen, and I went on and did it anyway. And it was a good thing I did. So 7 years forward, I took that old cassette and tried to listen to it and try to see exactly what note he was singing. Great lyricist. But slowly but surely, it really took maybe a week for me to get it done. I think it took me a week to really finish up the song. I just took a chorus, chopped it down into a chorus, and then the guitar bridge with the guitar. So I wrote that, and then everything else was polished by me. Yeah, it was 2004. I worked on My Right Shoe, and I was so immensely impressed.
Yeah.
I was just very, very proud of myself.
And now that's your single for your new album. So he had influence on your album. I know that our mutual friend Chris helped you draw your album cover and designed that. Who else has helped you?
Frank Rizzanti. He's a session player. I didn't know what to make. It was the first time I met him. You know, I was like, oh, you may not like this kind of stuff that I'm doing. I don't know. It was just an anxiety. I didn't know what. But Frank literally was very impressed when we heard. You know, he was always keeps saying, it's like, you know, these chords are so unusual. They're weird. I did not take that as offense. I thank Frank for saying that, because for somebody to say, oh yeah, your songs are great. It's so, you know, it's good. It's good songs. You know. Well, okay, fine. It's a compliment, I guess. You know, but anybody can say that. But when somebody says that your chords are really unusual and very weird, that is the highest compliment I can ever receive from somebody. That's a compliment, because I like weird. I like outside the box kind of thinking mentality. I just don't like this whole, oh, it's good. Oh, it's okay, you know.
Yeah.
No, weird and unusual is the best compliment. Me and Frank are, you know, obviously we're very, very good friends. We became really good friends, and he really can relate to my songs, because he likes that kind of style of music too. So thank God, you know, I can actually work with somebody who believes in my crazy music.
So we are sitting here in Session Studio on Amherst Street in Buffalo. You've been with Buffalo through all of its growth in the past couple of years.
I stuck it out, and proudly so.
How do you think that this album will fit into the music scene in Buffalo?
I've wondered that myself. Could people really like this kind of music? You know, could really people dig into this kind of music? You know, I'm not really. That's not the kind of person to fish compliments. I don't fish for any of that stuff. I mean, see, that's the part when I'm nervous about. You know, it's like, will people like it? It's a good question, actually. I've always wondered that myself.
Did Buffalo influence any of your music? I mean, we've got an artsy, eclectic city right here.
In a way, yes. It's part of the youth as well. What you're hearing is the younger version of me, technically speaking. You know, those.
Like
It's this experience that I went through, and Dave as well. His lyrics really, actually, is another inspiration. You know, because he's just a brilliant lyricist.
So when is the album being released?
Hopefully April. It's a slow process because of the expense, but slowly but surely it's coming along.
Okay, so you've recorded 4 tracks and you have 6 to go?
Yes.
So people who are watching this, if they're interested in getting your album this spring, where will they be able to get it? Will it be online? Will it be in stores?
I would say Reverb Nation, CD Baby, probably SoundCloud, maybe. Those 3 sources, they can find my album. And CDs as well. I'm definitely making CDs, so I'm definitely going to put it into stores. Local music stores. So that's my plan for now. It could be more than that, but that's just the initial plan for now.
Okay, so if there were 3 words to describe your album.
Quirky, interesting, and fun.
I like it. That is what the songs sound like. I've listened to them, and they do sound like that.
You have to consider the times in the 90s when the music industry was quite healthy then. It was much more eclectic because there's a lot of influence from that era as well that I liked. The things were coming out during the grunge and then the alternative movement in the mid-90s. So that was a very healthy time for me to be more inspired to get into the act. It's kind of sort of 90-ish. Kind of a feel to it.
I might be jumping the gun. I know that you still have some recording to do. The album's coming out this spring. But now that you're feeling the feels of coming out with an album, what's next for you after this comes out?
There'll be 4 more albums to go.
Wow!
That's how many songs I have. And after the 4 albums, I probably will have to continue doing some more writings. I have all stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks of cassette tapes.
Oh my goodness.
There are more germ of ideas recorded than actual songs, which is kind of sad.
Wow.
I have enough songs, I do, for a good few albums, but I'm thinking about going back to those old germ of ideas that I left behind 20 years ago, that I said I was going to get back to it and I didn't. Yeah, they were pretty old cassette tapes. It's like I'm going back to the beginning of 96. that cassette tape. That was pretty much a habit of mine. I was like, oh, this is pretty catchy. Okay, I'll get back to it. I never do. And some songs I would really work on it. It depends on the inspiration.
So if people really like this album, you've got more for them. There's
Yeah.
more coming.
Yes, there is
Wow,
more
that
coming.
is
Yeah.
good news.
Well, it's playing catch up. As much as I don't like to play catch up, but then again, I'm starting to let that go. I mean, in terms of regret. I mean, I wish I could have been a better musician then. But it seems like I seem to have a grasp in terms of the studio and the writing and things like that. Am I going to change my style? No.
Good.
It doesn't matter. I don't care what period I live in. Despite the ailing music industry now that we're living in, it's not going to change who I am. I'm not going to sell out. I have to be me. It's very important.
What gets you in the zone when you get in the booth and you're recording, you're singing? What makes you shut everything outside out and lets you just sing?
A full concentration. I do a lot of breathing, which is important because I do tend to get this anxiety. It's not as bad, but it's something I do every time I'm in the booth, just do my breathing so I can relax. It's not that bad. It doesn't take really all that much
Good.
to get into the zone. This is my happy place.
Good.
This is my happy place. This is my sanctuary. And I kind of urge people to do that, to support your local recording studios. I mean, yes, people can do that at home, but then again, can you play a drum set at home? That's kind of difficult because I couldn't do that at home. And I like working with people. I like getting outside of the house. I like to get out. I don't like to do all this at home because I know people can stream things at home. People can do this at home. I know it's staying home, but people need to get some fresh air once in a while.
Amen. Especially in the winter in Buffalo, we all kind of get cooped up.
I don't know. I'm just a little old school like that. I mean, technology is fine for what it is, but only to a certain extent. At least with me, I still like to come here. It's like it's being in another place. This is the first time you've been here, and you're feeling that.
It's the first time I've been in any recording studio.
Yeah, and you understand, and you would understand why, and you understand why I'd rather be here than just record at home in a way. It's kind of lonely. I like people around here. Robbie and Frank. You get all these really talented people in here. It's just not the same when you do it at home. Actually, the title of the album, Time Capsule. The reason why I call it Time Capsule is because it's just a collection of songs I wrote from this band from the 90s solely. Time Capsule kind of represents that. It's just a bunch of songs that was just hidden in the basement for so long. The things that I dug out in the basement, all these old cassette tapes. It's just revisiting, really. I feel that it's just a shame that there's a lot of good songs, man. It's like, it'd be a shame just to waste it, just to let it sit there. That's when I decided to kind of just step up and record and just have fun with it. See what the people think.
It's ironic that you call it Time Capsule because before when you said that these songs are you younger because you wrote them when you were younger.
It is.
I was going to say it's like a time capsule for you. It has collected you and your younger thoughts and creativity and everything, and now you get to listen to it all these years later, which is awesome.
It is, and it does. It brings a lot of memories. For each song, I can remember the stories. Like Apathy, that's one song that you liked.
I told you it was my favorite.
Yeah, Apathy is more political, and Dave's point of view. His point of view is more, why are we so apathetic towards people in trouble? That's something he really has a problem with, understanding people's apathy towards the homeless and things of that nature. Originally, it was supposed to be a rap song, because he raps. Terrible singer, but the dude can rap. Not into rap. And it was like, well, I'm not into rap, dude. I'm going to have to turn this into something. So, sorry. But it became pretty catchy. So I just took the lyrics, the stuff that he wrote when he was in Cape Cod. He brought him here a year later and started banging them away. I'm not a lyricist. I can write lyrics if I really, 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 really have something to say. I can pull it off pretty well. But I'm not as prolific as Dave. Dave can just if he really wanted to. He is more a bit of an inspirationalist than I am. I like inspiration. I like a nice peach falling from my lap and to see some golden globes just come to me and give me some magic. But sometimes it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes you have to chase after your inspiration. You can't just wait for it. It's ridiculous.
So we've talked about 3 of your songs. There are 10 total. Do all the songs on the album relate? Do they sound alike? Is there a theme to the album?
They do not sound alike. To homogenize, I don't. That's another problem I have. today's music is like everything sounds the same. I don't understand that really. It's really weird. It's very awkward actually. No, back then we wanted to be individuals and we wanted to be ourselves and want the song to stand out, each song to stand out. It's a power pop, rock genre kind of music, you know, but with a little quirky weirdness to it, added to it.
Perfect.
Yeah. So, but yeah, the Apathy was one. I worked on Memories. It was one song I wrote back in '98 or '99. But it's just instrumental. It's all instrumentation, really. It's a pretty song. It's simple. It's a ballad. But no, I don't think they correlate with each other. It's just, you know, different time, different frame. I think the major thing was just to grab all the songs from that period and just put it into an album. That's pretty much it.
That's good. It'll keep people guessing while they listen to it. They won't be
Guessing
doing
is
the same
good.
thing.
Curiosity is good. Yes.
Well, thank you, Giuseppe.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you so much, Colleen, for all this. It's my first interview, and I don't even feel an ounce of nervousness in me.
Yay!
Yes.
And I know that we're all looking forward to the album, and everyone can check it out this spring. We're hoping for around April, right?
I'm hoping April.
Yeah. Well, everybody check out Time Capsule. Yeah.
Please. Please.
I'm Colleen Young. Thank you for watching Live with Collie, episode 48, and stay tuned for Giuseppe's album titled Time Capsule, coming out this spring.